Hot dog is my favorite meat.
Woo! Get some!
Welcome to TYT, I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and we have a fantastic show ahead for you all today. We will be getting into some lighter topics in the second hour of the show, which I'm really looking forward to. Donald Trump has some new merch that we'll be sharing with you all, not to promote it, but really to make fun of it, because there's a lot to make fun of there. But before we actually get to the fun stuff, we got to get to the meat and potatoes of the show. We're gonna give you some updates on the Biden campaign right at the top of the program. Before we get to that though, just want to encourage you to help support the show, like and share the stream if you're watching us online on YouTube. You can also help and support us by becoming a member by going to tyt.com/join or clicking on that join button as well. Later in the show, we'll also talk about I guess Jake Tapper wants to go back to the potential redemption arc that we were seeing from him in the very beginning of the war in Gaza. He had someone on from Israel who was making some claims about how they're going out of their way to minimize civilian casualties. Tapper's not buying it. It was an incredible moment on CNN that, to be quite frank, I did not expect. So we're gonna get to that story in the second segment where Cenk will be joining me as well. But for now, why don't we talk about what Biden's been up to, and more importantly, what Biden's ardent supporters are saying about the possibility of him not running for re-election. Let's go.
I mean, I know incumbents in general are not popular right now, but do you ever think maybe we should have a new candidate?
No.
A former Obama administration official that you just heard from there, her name is Naira Huq, I should say, just could not believe that anyone would even propose that the Democratic Party have a nominee other than Joe Biden for the 2024 presidential election. And her reaction there was a little surprising. It's one thing to disagree, but she seemed almost like repulsed by the notion that anyone would even suggest that. And we'll hear more from Huq in a moment. But before we do, I think it's important to understand her background because she was very much involved in the Obama administration. That likely has something to do with her loyalty to Biden, even given how incredibly risky it is for him to run for re-election against Donald Trump. And hold on for later in this story where we will talk about how Biden actually thinks that he is in fact the best candidate to beat Donald Trump. But before we get to that, who is Huq? Well, she previously served as the senior director in the White House and senior advisor at the State Department under the Obama administration. She was also the media advisor for Nancy Pelosi when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House. She now serves as the advisory board of the Foreign Policy for America organization, and she's a producer and host of a Sirius XM show. So with that background information, now that you've gotten to know her a little bit, by the way, she used to also be a guest time to time on Damage Report here at TYT Network. So that's what we know about her. And now that we know her a little better, why don't we hear more of what she has to say?
Let me ask you, just as the Democrat at the table here, I mean, your guy's losing to him.
By voters, right? And by polls.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what more Joe Biden can do to remind people what is at stake, right? That's the State of the Union theme, soul of democracy, constantly talking about the battle for the soul of the country on the world stage. There is a responsibility for everybody else to also take the challenge just as seriously as the Democratic Party is in the White House right now.
I always think it's fascinating when you hear from Biden's supporters and when you hear the argument that the Democratic Party and Joe Biden in particular want to protect our democracy. That really, the one thing keeping America safe from the evil Donald Trump, dismantling our democratic process, is President Joe Biden. And see, I would be more willing to maybe agree with that opinion. I'd be more receptive to that opinion if Joe Biden actually allowed for a robust primary, Democratic primary. But it is abundantly clear that the DNC, which by the way, the DNC is littered by people who have been handpicked by Joe Biden. The DNC does not want a primary. That is incredibly undemocratic. Say what you will about any of the other contenders for the Democratic nomination. Whether you support them or not is really not that important. What's important is giving the American people an opportunity to voice their opinion, have their say in regard to who they believe would be the absolute best nominee for the Democratic ticket. Now, it's usually a given that the incumbent president will run for re-election. But the situation with Joe Biden, as we all know, is very different because when Joe Biden ran in 2020, he made it clear to everyone that he had no intentions of running for a second term. He clearly lied about that. And now that he insists on running for a second term, that's totally fine. Go ahead and do that, even though you're not keeping your own promise to the American people and Democratic voters. But you have to at least allow for a robust primary election. And it's clear that he's not interested in that, and the DNC is not really allowing that to happen. So the argument that the Republican Party is anti-democracy and it's really Democrats who are pro-democracy, they're actually both anti-democracy when it suits them. Sure, in slightly different ways. No, I should be fair. It's more than slight. As we know, Trump tried to overturn the results of our democratic process. That's far worse, and now he's facing criminal charges as a result of that. But the fact that both parties wanted to silence the voices of voters in America is what I'm referring to here. That is undemocratic. That is against my core values, and I feel that it's unfair. So with that said, I wanna go back to Huck because she and Tapper are right about one thing that you heard in that exchange, and it's the fact that President Joe Biden is losing in the polls, and he's losing largely among the very individuals that he leaned on heavily to win in 2020. And by the way, it's not one poll, it's not two polls. The polls have been terrible for Biden for months now. So let's take a look at this graph that was put together by Real Clear Politics. What they do is they look at the average of polls and they put this data together. And as you can see, while Trump has been experiencing a rise in the polling, Biden has not. And so Trump, according to an average of the polls, has 46.7%, while Biden has 44.7%. That is too close for comfort. But what's amazing to me is that his popularity is at record low levels. But again, Biden really does think he is the best candidate to beat Donald Trump. So let's get to some more data here. So there's a 3-day opinion poll which closed on Sunday, and it showed that 40% of respondents approved of Biden's performance as president, which is a marginal increase from 39% in November. The poll had a margin of error of about 3 percentage points. This was a Reuters Ipsos poll, but we've got some more from this poll. Biden's public approval rating has held below 50% since August of 2021, and this month's rating remained close to the lowest levels of his presidency, 36%, seen in mid-2022. But Huck then explains why she thinks it should, in fact, be Biden running for the 2024 ticket, and so she's gonna make her case in this next video. Let's give her a chance, let's hear her case, and then we'll analyze whether or not it makes sense.
I know incumbents in general are not popular right now, but do you ever think maybe we should have a new candidate?
No. A new candidate would not have the bully pulpit of the White House, right? Would not have a core of reporters that are covering his every move, which I would ask, as we discuss this here and just let slide that Trump is close enough in age to Biden, and also that Trump's speeches are largely incoherent and have been from the jump, but like somehow that narrative is the Biden narrative here. I do think that the benefit that he has is as we get closer to the day, and as you said, people pay attention, that the difference will become clear, but I'm hanging on to hope here.
Does that make any sense? But really, okay, let's be fair and let's be real. Does it make sense to, on one hand, talk about the threat that Donald Trump poses to democracy, while also simultaneously acknowledging how poorly Biden has been performing in the polls, and say, I'm holding on to hope that Biden does better. Okay, so you can't fearmonger about Trump while you're still promoting the weakest possible candidate to run against Trump in the general election. And that is what the Democratic Party is doing. And what's amazing to me is how delusional Biden is. This story literally just broke. It blew my mind. I can't even believe he thinks this. But apparently, according to CNN, Biden told Democratic donors today, Tuesday, he wasn't confident he'd be seeking another term if his predecessor, Donald Trump, wasn't himself running for the White House. Quote, if Trump wasn't running, I'm not sure I'd be running, he said, saying Democrats cannot let him win. Okay, so look, there is a possibility that they're not sharing the polling with Biden. Is that what's happening? Why would he be under the impression that he would be the best candidate to beat Donald Trump, when poll after poll for months now have made it very clear that he is a political liability for the Democratic Party and for anyone who is hoping that Trump does not serve a second term? Biden has long viewed himself as the best shot at protecting the country from another Trump administration, and has framed the upcoming election as a defense of democracy. By the way, one other thing that I guess is a piece of advice to Biden defenders. Listen, I get that you guys don't like that people are pointing to the fact that Biden is older. He seems to be in mental decline. He has many moments in public that don't look good for him. The fact that he was on the world stage recently and just kind of trailed off in the middle of a speech and announced that it was his bedtime is not a good look. And so I get that they don't like that anyone points to that reality, right? If I loved a politician, I would also get a little salty when people keep pointing out his age, even though pointing out his age is totally legitimate in this context. However, if you're gonna do the comparison of Biden and Trump, please just understand that it insults the intelligence of people who can hear, who can see, and who can analyze things that are happening right before them. Because yes, Trump is also up there in age, but you would be mistaken if you think that Trump and Biden carry themselves similarly when they're addressing the public. As much as I hate to admit it, Trump is a little more charismatic. He's a little more energetic, and while he's up there in age, it doesn't show the same way that it does for Joe Biden. This is the reality of the situation, guys. Okay, look, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I really can't think of a single Democrat right now that I'm excited about. So it's not like I'm sitting here fantasizing about a Bernie Sanders presidency and I'm just speaking out against Joe Biden because I don't like him and I want my guy to be the nominee instead. That is not what's happening here, okay? Bernie Sanders is up there in age as well. I'm not even calling on him to run for president. He's not even considering it. So let's get that out of the way completely. But again, if they genuinely see Donald Trump as a threat, they should run their best candidates and they should allow for a robust primary election. And that's not gonna happen because it's clear that Biden is very much serious about running for re-election and he's engaging in the fundraising to prove it. So for instance, today alone, he's holding 3 fundraisers. Between Monday and today, total of 7 fundraisers. Democratic officials are looking ahead to what some believe could be a $1 billion campaign. And singer-songwriter James Taylor will headline a later event in Boston's Theater District. Tickets for the You've Got a Friend in Joe event ran between $50 and $7,500. Like, he's in it. He's definitely running. So anyone who thinks like, nah, he's eventually gonna drop out and he's gonna announce that Gavin Newsom's gonna be the nominee, that's not gonna happen. It doesn't appear that that's the case. But I wanna finally wrap this up by discussing where young voters are, because young voters did carry Biden through in 2020. When you look at the swing states that he needed to win, it was young voters, people of color who showed up and got the job done. So how is Biden polling among young people? Well, it's not looking so great. Just 49% of 18 to 29-year-olds definitely plan on voting for president in 2024, and that's down from 57% who said the same during the fall of 2019, according to the Institute of Politics at Harvard Kennedy School. That is the poll, the institute that did the poll. And so things are different today compared to where we were in 2019 and 2020. Especially in 2020, there was a lot more motivation to get Trump out of office. I'm not sure that same motivation is here, and I think we're seeing that in the polls. And those numbers also get a lot worse once you break it down by demographic. Younger Black Americans saw a sharp decline, with 38% saying they will definitely vote next year compared to 50% in 2019. And Hispanic Americans also had a steep drop, with 40% saying they will definitely vote in 2024 compared to 56% in 2019. So not only is Biden doing poorly in the polling, you have smaller percentages of his core base saying that they plan to definitely vote for president in 2024. So he's got a lot of work to do if he's going to be persuasive enough to get people not only on his side, but to get people to the polls. And by the way, again, that's a 16-point drop. You know, the number of, or the percentage of Hispanic voters who say that they're planning on voting for sure in 2024. And let's take a look at this graph. It shows the share of young Americans who say they trust in Biden, Trump, or neither to handle select issues. So the plurality of young people do not trust either Biden or Trump when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war. I think they're correct to be distrustful toward these individuals on that issue. Climate change, I think Biden's definitely better on climate change than Trump, but certainly not good enough to adequately respond to the climate emergency. Gun violence, there were some executive orders from Biden, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is what public opinion is, and young people don't trust either candidate when it comes to these issues. There's also Ukraine, and then finally, clearly my favorite area here, crime and public safety. I also don't trust either one of them on that issue in particular. So it's not looking good for Biden. And again, I know I keep repeating this, but it's worth repeating. If you're gonna run a campaign that latches onto the notion that people must vote for you, because if they fail to do so, our democracy will be dismantled by a second Trump term, it's hard to make that argument if you're not allowing for a primary election and you're not allowing for the best possible candidate to run against Trump in the 2024 presidential election. So we'll see how this all plays out, but Democrats, it ain't looking good. And you guys are making your bed. The question is, do you want to lay in it? I don't. I think that we should have a robust primary, something the DNC is working hard to prevent. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Cenk Uygur will be joining me to give us updates on what's currently going down in Gaza. Incredible interview on CNN featuring Jake Tapper. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would say that, but here we are. Stick around.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
All right, Tanaj714 asks a question that I find befuddling. I get it, Anna, but why is Biden the weakest candidate? That was almost a 20-minute segment reading the polling to you. And then the rest of it is, who is your alternative? I don't know who my alternative is. You know how I would find out who the alternative should be? A robust primary. That's how I would find out. Prague 2018 says Trump is also older and in mental decline. That's true. That's true. I remember talking about how Trump was also in mental decline when he was still in office. My point is, optically speaking, he doesn't come across as someone who's in mental decline to the same extent as Biden. He's got energy, he's got charisma, he's able to hide it a little better, okay? But to try to make that, draw that equivalent, oh, they're both old situation isn't gonna work because optically speaking, they're different. They come across differently. Let me give you the rest of it. Trump is also older and in mental decline. Distorting the bedtime moment is insane. And okay, so when he loses to Trump, come talk to me, okay? Just come talk to me. There are so many videos littered all over the internet of Biden literally forgetting where he is, not knowing how to walk off the stage or which direction to go in, mixing up names of people in his own administration. But okay, listen, I don't really care at this point, okay? Because obviously the Democratic Party, while they fearmonger about Trump, are not really serious about defeating Trump. And you're gonna see that in the general election. But okay, Anna, it does show every time Trump opens his mouth, have you listened to Trump lately or is it all his charisma? All right, the Throat Goat Dragon says, Biden thinks he has to run because the only other donor-approved nominee would be Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom. California isn't sending their best. I agree with you on that. But again, a robust primary election would allow for other candidates to run, to make their case to the American people, so we can choose the best possible person to run against Trump. But apparently a lot of people, even in our own audience, not interested in that. That's fine, totally cool. Anyway, speaking of that, we will be having some special programming tomorrow. So we're gonna have a Democratic response to the Republican debate. So you can check that out tomorrow night, Wednesday, December 6th at 10 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Pacific, tyt.com/live. Don't miss it.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
Read the poll. Read the poll, Jack.
Back on TYT.
Thank God, Cenk, that you're back on TYT. Okay, because who better to read audience comments than Cenk Uygur?
Okay, I'm ready. Speaking of which, Benjamin Morrill gifted a Young Turks membership. We appreciate you, Benjamin. And 420 JR, man, gifted 20. Woo, as my grandma used to say. All right, thank you guys. We appreciate you. Hit the join button below. We do need you, and members make this show possible, and we do the show with the members, as Anna just alluded to. I rather enjoy that. All right, and tyt.com/join, no matter where you're watching, to become one of us and help us bring honest reporting out into the world. All right, Casper.
All right, let's talk about attorneys general basically threatening journalists in America over how they're covering the war in Gaza. This story is incredible. It's not getting much attention, and it is shocking that it took Fox News of all places to break this story, but let's talk about it. More than a dozen attorneys general have signed on to a threatening letter against journalists covering the war in Gaza. Now, Fox News Digital says that the prosecutors signed on to a letter that was sent to media outlets including the New York Times, Reuters, CNN, and AP News, and basically put them on notice that providing material support to Hamas is illegal. Now, none of these organizations there's been no indication that any of these news organizations have provided material support to Hamas. What does that even mean? But the letter was sent to these 4 organizations, and I'm gonna read you a few excerpts from it. So this was sent to them on Monday afternoon, and it included 14 state attorneys general. And they stated that, look, if your reporting appears to be providing any support for a terrorist group like Hamas, well, you could face prosecution. Think about it. They write, quote, "We will continue to follow your reporting to ensure that your organizations do not violate any federal or state laws by giving material support to terrorists abroad. Now your organizations are on notice. Follow the law." Wow. So the AGs continue to define what material support would mean. And that would include any property, tangible or intangible, or service, including currency or monetary instruments, expert advice or assistance, communications equipment, facilities and transportation, except medicine or religious materials. So what if, let's say, the New York Times is trying to do reporting from Gaza, they're not allowed to be on the ground in Gaza, but they want to interview, I don't know, a Hamas militant, because Hamas is part of this story. Hamas is part of this ongoing war. What if in an effort to do, let's say, an on-air interview, they send them a camera? Would they be prosecuted for doing that? I mean, that would be communications equipment, no, Jake?
Yeah, no, this law is crazy in so many different ways. Not only equipment, they say if you get advice from someone we will later call Hamas, or affiliated with Hamas, or even once took a picture with someone who's in Hamas, then we're gonna criminally prosecute you.
That's insane.
Advice, what does that even mean? Like that means basically don't talk to them. But wait, that triggers a second problem. Now they say you have to vet everyone that you're hiring meticulously. They clarify that in the letter many times. And they say if they have any connection to anyone associated with Hamas, we're gonna put you in prison, okay? So, but how do you vet them without talking to them? Because if you talk to them, they say, well, you just got his advice and counsel, okay, that's it, now you're under. In other words, guys, there's three things here that I wanna draw your attention. Number one, they're criminalizing freedom of the press. And so cancel culture, anti-freedom, and going after the press. If you dare criticize Israel, we might put you in jail in America.
This is crazy, it really is. Because think about it, the United States government can declare, look, I believe that Hamas is a terrorist organization, but it also happens to be the governing body, unfortunately, in Gaza. So that makes the situation a lot more complicated. It isn't the same as talking about ISIS as a terrorist group. ISIS never had any governance over any group of people. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in this case, I mean, this is a story involving a literal war in which Hamas is the governing body of one side of this war.
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick example of that. I could make an argument that the government of Iran is a terrorist organization. Certainly some of their military factions could be considered a terrorist organization. So are reporters not allowed to talk to anyone in the Iranian government? Well, how are you gonna get updates on negotiations we have with them over uranium, et cetera? Whether we're gonna be part of a deal that the United States government made with Iran. This standard is insane. And it's the most un-American thing you've ever heard. So don't you dare criticize a foreign country, by the way, let alone our country. A foreign country, otherwise we're gonna put you in prison. But number two, they make it so onerous that if you even talk to anyone who's Arab, they're gonna say, well, I wanna see all his pictures. Did he ever take a picture with someone associated with Hamas? Did he ever talk to anyone associated with Hamas? Did he ever know anything ahead of time? Well, a journalist's job is to try to figure things out, and sometimes ahead of time, right? So they're basically making it so hard to hire any Arabs so that their voice doesn't get out. So then you have Israeli propaganda 24/7, but you have no reporters on the ground to give you any other perspective, Muslim, Arab, or otherwise, okay? And there's a third giant problem, but go ahead.
And I'm also curious about what this would mean for ordinary Americans, right? Let's say they're ordinary Americans who are on social media, they come across certain content that they want to share, but that content is, labeled or considered propaganda from Hamas, and disseminating it or sharing it would amount to providing support for Hamas. Does that mean that ordinary citizens would get prosecuted or investigated? I'm serious, I know that sounds hyperbolic and crazy, but this is such a vague law. And the fact that you have 14 attorneys general signing on to this, and it's essentially a threat to journalists, I think says a lot about how far they're willing to go. And by the way, the letter was signed by Republican attorneys general in Iowa, Alabama, Florida, Arkansas, Indiana, Kentucky, Texas, Louisiana, Utah, Montana, Virginia, South Carolina, West Virginia, and Tennessee. I should also note, by the way, that today, Congress voted on a resolution to say that being anti-Zionist is the same as being anti-Semitic, which is a lie, okay? Being anti-Zionist does not mean you're anti-Semitic. But that is another effort to, basically attempt to silence anyone who is critical of Zionism.
Yeah, so look, we can get into a long debate about Zionism, and I have on many occasions over the last 40 years. And sometimes people online use Zionist as a code word for Jewish, and I hate the way that it sounds.
I agree, yeah.
Yes, so, the damn Zionists or something. No, don't do that. That's, if you make it about race, religion, etc., we're never gonna win that battle, and that's the wrong battle. And besides which, as progressives, the most important point overall is we never make it about race or religion. If you're trying to discriminate against our Jewish brothers and sisters, you got no business here. We're not interested in it at all, okay? And that defeats the whole point. But Zionism is a political movement. So what, you're not allowed to criticize a political movement? That's insane. Our Congress has lost its mind. Our Congress is totally and utterly corrupt. So everyone who signed on to that bill is a total disaster.
Well, a lot of people did. The House voted in favor of the resolution, and it passed 311 to 14. Only 14 members of Congress voted against it.
All 311 people of those are corrupt. They are. That's an outrageous, ridiculous, un-American, unconstitutional bill to pass. By the way, the Supreme Court should strike that down. So you're not allowed to criticize political movements because, by the way, you can criticize any political movement you like in America, but you're not allowed to criticize a political movement in another country. It's insane, guys. And by the way, this helps the cause of anti-Semitism because then it allows people to go, well, I guess they control the United States Congress. I guess they control all of the media and they control all the attorneys general. It's actually not true. It's not true, but this doesn't help. This doesn't help. An AIPAC and Democratic majority for Israel going around threatening everybody. We'll spend millions of dollars in your primaries unless you listen to us in Israel. That doesn't help the cause of fighting anti-Semitism. That makes it 10,000 times worse. Stop hurting our Jewish brothers and sisters by doing that. But no, they're so corrupted they can't see straight. Those lobbyists and those particular politicians. Okay, but back to this insane law that these Republicans want to push forward. Guys, okay, so their standard is, okay, if any reporter knew about a Hamas attack ahead of time, okay, that triggers all of these things and you should be put to prison if you worked with that reporter. But wait a minute, Benjamin Netanyahu and the entire Israeli government knew a year ahead of time about October 7th. So does anybody who gets a quote from Netanyahu, should they be arrested? Because Netanyahu knew, he knew way more than that one allegation of one reporter who
was allegedly embedded with Hamas.
Yeah,
that was.
And they say embedded. And the reporter, I read the story. They're like, Gaza Strip is minuscule. It's tiny. It's smaller than Las Vegas. So when something's about to happen, you hear it instantly. And I followed to see where the news story was going. And then it happened instantly, right? It's not like I had days or weeks or anything like that. So this is already a made up thing. But that guy knew for about a couple of minutes before it happened. Netanyahu knew for a year before it happened. Are we prosecuting? Are we prosecuting? Oh no. Israel can do anything they like. They could know ahead of time that attack's gonna happen against their own people, do nothing about it. They could work with reporters, they could give stories to reporters nonstop. But if you dare work with an Arab or a Muslim, and they're actually a good reporter, or they ever took a picture or said the wrong thing about anyone at any time, we're gonna put you in an American prison. These are, if they ever do this, they will be, obviously these people will be political prisoners. And guys, super dark times are ahead. Trump reposted an article claiming he's going to be dictator, positively. he shared it like, yeah.
It was an op-ed that warned about Trump dismantling our democracy and serving as a dictator in the United States. It was an op-ed written by him, not by him, about him, and he posted that.
He posted it like, yeah.
Like bragged about it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like I didn't tell you. Here's an article about me being a dictator, and I'm telling you that's what I'm gonna do. And today, Steve Bannon and Kash Patel, who worked in the Trump administration, did a show together where they said, oh yeah, we're gonna start arresting everybody. Joe Scarborough, you should be on notice. People in politics and media, they didn't, no specific charges, just political prisoners. And they're telling you, we're definitely gonna do it. Steve Bannon was talking about Kash Patel, who was an absolute deranged lunatic. He's like, well, you're gonna be the head of the CIA. Is that true? Are they planning to put Kash Patel as the head of the CIA? Oh my God, guys, the dictatorship is coming and they're announcing it ahead of time. And so will they start locking up people for disagreeing with Trump or Israel? They just told you they're going to. So this is the sorry state that America finds itself in.
Scary stuff for sure. All right, let's move on to a pretty stunning interview that took place on CNN last night. And it features Jake Tapper doing his job appropriately. Let's go into it.
There are a lot of innocent people being killed by bombs that Israel is raining down upon Gaza.
I think it will be seen that the IDF really has done everything that is humanly possible to try to safeguard innocent civilians.
It's very hard to believe that, especially on a day when one of our producers lost 9 members of his family who are not members of Hamas, not members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, not members of any group, just 9 people just trying to live their lives.
Who is that man and what has he done with Jake Tapper? Because that is not something that I've become accustomed to seeing on his show or from Jake Tapper. But CNN had Israel's Mark Regev on, and he, spewed the usual talking points that we've heard from most individuals representing Israel on our cable news channels. And he said that, we're doing what we can to prevent civilian casualties, even as the number of civilian deaths in the Gaza Strip continues to rise day after day as a result of Israel's aerial bombardment of the region. Now, clearly, Jake Tapper wasn't buying his argument, and maybe the fact that the story is now much closer to him due to the loss of family that one of his producers experienced is what's kind of informing his reactions to what Regev is saying here. But I just wanna zoom in on Tapper for a second, because look at the skepticism on his face. It is pretty amazing.
I think it will be seen that the IDF really has done everything that is humanly possible to try to safeguard innocent civilians.
It's very hard to believe that, especially on a day when one of our producers lost 9 members of his family who are not members of Hamas, not members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, not members of any group, just 9 people just trying to live their lives.
So Cenk, I'm real curious what you think about the exchange so far. There's a lot more to get to, but what do you think?
Yeah, so this Mark Regev guy, his job is to do propaganda. That's okay, he's from a different government, a foreign government, and he's here to justify killing overwhelmingly civilians, over 15,000. They haven't been able to show any Hamas fighters that were killed. The Hamas fighters are in the tunnels are perfectly intact. And even the IDF says at most 1,000 to 2,000, an outrageous, ridiculous number that isn't close to true. But even if you take it at face value, that means at least 13,000 civilians bombed to death, their heads crushed, their bodies lit up,
dismembered as a result.
That's right, all of these things. And we've now seen a lot of it. I mean, I hate to point you to it, and I don't want you to it because it's hard to recover from it. But whether you see the Hamas atrocities that happen in Israel, or you see the kids that are crushed to death from the Israeli bombs in Gaza, it's hard to recover from that. And so 13,000 civilians murdered, killed, with almost no hope of actually getting the Hamas terrorists inside the tunnels. And so his job is to excuse that barbarism, okay? So that's his job. Jake Tapper doing a really good job, and he has been throughout. Now, like he saw that Israel tape on what Hamas did, and that shook him for a while, and any human being would be shaken by that, and I understand that. And there's nothing wrong with reporting that side. You should report both sides, right? So Tapper's done a terrific job, And that's coming from us who's criticized Tapper many times in the
Yes,
past.
especially on this issue in the past.
On this issue and many other issues.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing good journalism. So credit where credit is due always. And guys, I want to say one more thing. You see, the anti-Semitic stereotypes are not true. They are not true. So Jake Tapper happens to be Jewish. Wolf Blitzer was not only Jewish, but worked for AIPAC at a point. But they're asking some of the toughest questions on television of the Israeli government. So they're not controlling the media and they're not protecting Israel. They're doing their jobs as American journalists and doing a really good job. Because now hatred is spreading all across against Jews, against Muslims, against Palestinians. And we're trying to bring all of that down. Okay, now, and remember, this is not about race or religion. It is about governments. And what the government of Israel, the right-wing government of Israel has done is atrocious, and Regev is about to try to justify it.
So in this next clip, you're gonna understand why Jake Tapper, especially in this exchange, is super skeptical of the usual talking points and seems to reject it. So let's take a look.
First of all, I extend my sorrow to him and my sympathies. But if I saw your report correctly, and please correct me if I say something wrong, that happened in northern Gaza, in Gaza City, where a month ago we already asked all the civilians to leave. And most of them did. If there was like 1,200,000 people there was only a couple of tens of thousands left. And one has to ask, yes, they had ample opportunity to leave. I don't know what happened. I don't have the specific circumstances. I know there's deadly combat going on now in the north, still between these IDF and Hamas terrorists, yes? And we don't want to see anyone caught up in the crossfire, but why didn't they heed the advice and leave the area?
You can't blame them. There's now
I don't
fighting,
blame them.
But you can't, there's fighting in the south now. I mean, I've been asking this since October 7th. Where are these people supposed to go?
Jake Tapper's 1,000% right. And Mark Regev absolutely did blame them. Why didn't they evacuate the north? I don't know, they were reportedly trapped in the north. And even if they had tried to make that journey to the south, as we all know, as we've shared evidence of, Israel had no problem, the IDF had no problem continuing their aerial bombardment in the south as well as the north. Okay, it was more intense in the north, but they were still doing bombings in the south. And so some Palestinians were like, what is the point of risking our lives on this journey to the south when there's a good chance that we can be harmed on that journey or suffer from airstrikes once we get there? And so he was blaming them. Why didn't they evacuate to the south? No, why did you guys make the decision to engage in indiscriminate bombing? Okay, more than half of the residential buildings in Gaza gone, wiped away. Millions of people displaced. 80% of people living in Gaza have been displaced. And I want to give you some more information about the producer who lost 9 family members in Gaza, 9 family members with one Israeli drone strike, airstrike, not drone strike, airstrike. So CNN reports that Ibrahim Daman, that's the producer, luckily escaped to Egypt with his young family nearly a month ago. But on Sunday, he heard news that at least 9 relatives trapped in northern Gaza had been killed in a strike on his aunt's house. Now, his childhood home in Gaza City was also obliterated in a separate strike on an adjacent building the same day. So that strike actually happened before the strike that ended up killing 9 of his family members. An Israeli strike had directly hit the building where his relatives were living in Bet Lahia, killing his uncle and uncle's wife, daughter, and 2 grandchildren, as well as his aunt, her husband, and 2 children. At least 2 other relatives are in critical condition, and still others are still buried under that rubble. So imagine knowing that not only have you lost 9 family members, some of them are just under rubble right now. Rubble that people can't take bodies out of because they don't have the fuel to operate the machines necessary to get through that rubble and get to the bodies. It's just an incredibly devastating story. And I think the callous nature in which Mark Regev handled that moment was important for people to see. Because it's just like this complete disregard and brazen attitude toward human lives or the loss of human lives.
Yeah, so we've used the Armenian genocide as an example many times, but you could do it with any of the forced marches in genocides throughout the history of the world. So the Bataan Death March, the Trail of Tears, etc. to have a representative of the government that committed that genocide come out and go, well, why didn't they do the Bataan Death March? Well, if they stayed, of course we were going to kill them. They're civilians and they're a family and they got kids. Well, of course we were going to murder them unless they did the death march. And when they got to the end of the death march, we were going to kill them there. So why didn't they move? But okay, so it's intensely callous. It's inhumane. It's disgusting. Now I'm going to give the most, ironic defense of Mark Regev. What's he supposed to say? That's what his government did do, and there's no defense of it. Like, well, how do you defend killing that family?
You can't.
You can't. You just can't. So there is no defense of the Israeli government's actions, and so except for this insane, every talking point is insane. The Palestinians hate us. When were they supposed to love you? In the middle of a 50-year occupation? Like, the Armenians hate the Turks, so the Armenians had it coming. The Turks had a right to, the Ottoman Empire had a right to defend itself. It would be absurd, right? Absurd. Whenever any giant government or empire says, well, those minorities or those people that have no power, they dared to rise up against my empire. And of course I kill them all because the empire had a right to defend itself. But yet we treat it seriously here in America, and those talking points are everywhere. And Regev's job is to come out here and to do propaganda on behalf of genocide. So thank you to Jake Tapper and CNN for holding him accountable.
Yep, and I have to go to one last video of their exchange because I really do think Jake Tapper deserves credit for how he handled this conversation. Let's take a look.
Now we're being more specific because it is more complicated in the South. We've actually designated areas in the South, which are safer areas, which are especially, there's a number of them. We've shared the maps with the United States. It's been shared also with the UN and the other humanitarian organizations. Listen, we have to hit Hamas in Khan Yunis. They've got a strong military infrastructure there. They've got a network of tunnels. If we want to destroy Hamas's military machine, and we have to act in the South as well.
So that heavy sigh, even though he's not verbalizing anything in that clip that I just showed you, the heavy sigh is a clear indication that he is not buying what Regev is selling. And he had counterpoints throughout that segment. So shout out to Jake Tapper and how he handled that segment. He did well, and I hope that continues. Because by the way, you should be 1000% skeptical of any claims coming out of Hamas. But the same is true when you're hearing talking points coming out of the Israeli government as well. And there have been moments, okay, to be fair, where I think Jake Tapper slipped a little and just kind of took what the IDF and the Israeli government had to say at face value without challenging anything. But you should, as a journalist, as someone who works in news media, be skeptical of all claims and do the best you can in figuring out whether the claims being made are truthful claims. And I think it's pretty clear, given the high civilian death toll, given the fact that you have 1.8 million Palestinians displaced, you have more than half of the buildings completely demolished in the Gaza Strip. It's pretty clear that they are not actually doing what they claim, which is taking measures to minimize civilian casualties.
Yeah, and last thing is, if you noticed from what Regev was saying in that interview, he said, well, we told them to go march south. That's why we dropped a bomb and killed the family of your producer. So they had it coming. And then later he said, well, obviously we have to bomb the south. There's some Hamas fighters there and some tunnels. Okay, so they wouldn't have been safe if they went to the south, according to your own admission within the same interview. Doesn't care. He's like, because they're not trying to get Hamas. They're trying to do maximum damage. Netanyahu talking about thinning the herd. And that's referring to Palestinians as animals and admitting, yeah, we're doing ethnic cleansing. And so, and tons of cabinet ministers that we've given you direct quotes from saying, yeah, we were gonna retake Gaza. Just gonna take it. And so that's what the objective here is. Have you guys seen, and one of our members wrote this, and I'm sorry I don't have your name right now, but I love that we do the show with you guys because they made a great point that, wait, have you seen any IDF videos of fighting inside the tunnels? Or even heard of fighting inside the tunnels? No, Hamas is in the tunnels, but they won't go in the tunnels because they're not trying to get Hamas. I know it's dangerous in the tunnels, but the fighters are in the tunnels killing the civilians above ground does you no good if you're trying to get Hamas. And you saying, oh, well, the hostages and the fighters are in the tunnels, but I'm too scared to go in, so I'm just killing civilians instead. That's not the defense you think it is.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to share with you just how much wealth is going to be transferred over to the children of billionaires in this country. The numbers are insane, they're shocking, and it gives you a sense of really how wealth is accumulated in the US. Come right back.
On the social break here, let's go to members. Monk Without a Cause writes in, I'm one of Anna's crotchety old guys and I never give up hope. I didn't know Anna had a squadron of crotchety old guys, but now I know, and I know that you're part of them. I kind of like that idea. I Am Sock writes in, I love how vote shaming season and the war on Christmas happen at the same time.
Totally.
It is a nice twofer. Vote shaming in the primaries also makes no sense. Doesn't even try to make logical sense.
No, but I also love the media shaming where it's like, I don't like that the polls are bad for Biden. Please don't talk about them.
Yeah, that'll probably work. Anyway, I can't say anything. All right,
I know.
Uriah Heep says, I never want to hear any evangelical yell about protecting the babies again. Hearing the accounts of how the premature Palestinian babies had died in the incubators, no longer operating, decomposing to the point of putrefaction. They whine about a woman's right to choose with fetuses not yet viable, while not raising alarm about the atrocities done by Israel. We have a word for that: hypocrites, plain and simple. That is indisputable. Every evangelical Christian that isn't going crazy right now trying to protect those Palestinian babies is a giant hypocrite, a huge liar, never cared about babies, never cared about life. Is just using it as a way to attack Democrats. So just be honest for the first time in your life. Be honest. If you're a fundamentalist evangelical Christian, you never cared about the babies. Because right now, what are you doing to stop Israel from bombing and killing all those babies?
I know, Cenk, but the end times are coming, and that's way more important.
And remember, in the end times,
it's disgusting, by the way.
In the end times, 7 to 8 billion people die, including all the babies. But we care about life. Do you? Get the hell out of here. You don't care about any of that stuff. All you care about is, I hate Democrats. Yeah, I know. Okay, so, and everybody who looks like them. Anyway, Kropotkin fanboy writes in, Cenk's right. I like this beginning already. Anyway, Zionist is not a synonym for Jew. Ask the zillions of strongly anti-Zionist, ultra-Orthodox Jews in the US who hate Zionism because they believe it to be a form of idolatry. There are also zillions of secular and or atheist Jewish anti-Zionists.
Very true.
All of that is definitely true. And so that's why that bill is absurd. At the same time, guys, I hate this thing of like, the Zionists and stuff. We just criticize the government, Let's move on, right? So I get it. I get the debate about Zionism, trust me. But I'm worried that it's slipping a little bit. I don't want it to slip. I don't want it to, because the minute you start talking about people's race or religion, you're lost. You're wrong morally, and you'll lose the argument as well. All right, Happy Warrior Dragon at Twitch gifted a sub. That's their 52nd one. Amazing, thank you. J9720 wrote in, I just want to know how they can spend millions to influence US political campaigns, then ask for US money. It is kind of funny. But to be fair, it's not Israeli citizens, it's not the Israeli government. It is people that are American citizens who are funding AIPAC, Democratic Majority for Israel, and saying, as American citizens, we want you to only support Israel. And we don't want you to do. By the way, that any Saudi Arab American can do the same exact thing, except with $1 billion. All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, Benjamin Webster, Sam Horn, and Omar Sada, who all just joined. We really appreciate it by hitting the join button below. And Quantum Dragon upgraded. We appreciate that so much. It helps a lot. And you could also do that through the join button. And Box, you're back gifting 5 memberships. We appreciate you so much, brother.
Big Box.
There you go. All right, Anna, you're up.
This report is bananas. So strap up. Okay, let me just move on.
Let's move on.
Let's move on immediately.
Okay.
Anyway, a new report from investment banking company UBS highlights the obscene levels of wealth that billionaires and their heirs are accumulating through inheritance alone. So we're not talking about innovation. We're not talking about job creation. We're just talking about the transfer of wealth, which allows for these heirs to accumulate more wealth. That's how it's done. And it's been done like that for quite some time in this country. But capitalism has become more and more unfettered, and the cronyism is incredible. And so you gotta keep in mind how some of that wealth was made to begin with, but we'll get to all of that later. Now, in recent months, the world's new billionaires made more of their fortunes through inheritance rather than through entrepreneurship. And it's important to keep that in mind because one of the arguments that you hear in regard to low taxes, whether it's estate taxes, income taxes, capital gains taxes, is no. We can't raise taxes because the wealthy people are the job creators here. They're the innovators. They're the ones who take the most risk. But in this context, ain't nobody taking any risk. These are heirs accumulating wealth through their inheritance. It also marked the first time in the 9-year history of this report that newly minted billionaires accumulated more wealth from inheritance than from starting a business. Now, 53 heirs inherited a total of $150.8 billion in the 12 months ending in April, exceeding the total of $140.7 billion accumulated by 84 new self-made billionaires. Okay, and then hold on to your butts for this. The report said more than 1,000 billionaires are expected to pass $5.2 trillion to their children over the next 20 or 30 years. Yes, that is trillion with a T. And John Matthews, who is the head of UBS's private wealth management division, says the great wealth transfer, which we've all been talking about for the last 10 years, is underway. The average age of the world's billionaires is almost 69 years old right now. So this whole transition or wealth handover will start to accelerate. And the class of ultra wealthy people is growing again after a very brief dip. So according to the same report, the number of billionaires rose by 7% globally over the 12 months ending in April. The population of billionaires in the world increased to 2,544 from 2,376. Their total wealth grew by 9%. From $11 trillion to $12 trillion. That is a lot of money. So there are some more insane stats to get into, but Cenk, we've been talking about estate taxes on this show for well over a decade. The arguments against estate taxes don't really make much sense to me. The problem just keeps getting worse, really.
Yeah, so it's not that people who inherit money are bad people, and you don't know them at all. Some of them are terrible people, and some of them are perfectly great people who use the money for good causes. So it's not about judging them. We don't even know them, right? But when Republicans say that, oh no, you can't tax this money because of how hard these good Americans work to earn it. No, wait a minute. For the heirs, they literally did nothing to earn it. Nothing. Now, if they worked in their parents' company or something like along those lines, well, good, they make money for that. They have income from that, and they might get wealth from that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about inheritance, where the heir literally did absolutely nothing. They had the incredible gumption to let their parents die, and then they collect their money. So this whole idea that, oh my God, you're taxing these poor job creators and earners, totally untrue. Okay, so and it's $5.2 trillion So guys, the reason the estate tax exists is that it doesn't take all of the money. It takes a certain percentage above certain thresholds, right? And the reason for that is so that everyone can have opportunity. So, hey, you did a great job of earning $5 trillion or whatever. Now, you could pass it on to like 50 people that are your heirs, or you could pass on trillions to those 50 people and then still have enough money left over for providing, for example, free college education so the next generation can create wealth and have heirs and do all those things that are not only morally right for the American dream, but economically makes sense for the country, because then that creates a lot more businesses and a lot more opportunity rather than the same 50 people. And you know people who are super rich that inherit money, generally not the hardest working folks in the world.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that briefly, because what are they planning to do with their inheritance, right? Are they planning on starting new businesses? Because you never know, you come across some money as a result of this inheritance and you have this big idea and finally you have the funding to actually make it happen. But more than 2/3 of the billionaires with inherited wealth in this UBS survey said that they plan to continue and grow what their parents or grandparents achieved, whether it's in a business, a brand, or assets. But the report makes sure to note that their priorities are likely to be different than their parents' priorities, with more aggressive investing targets and a focus on AI, clean energy, which could be good, and electric vehicle transition. Now, John Matthews, who's the head of UBS's private wealth management division, says this: the wealth management industry needs to focus on those industries that can help accelerate the ability to invest in these areas. A lot of that falls in the area of private equity, direct private deals, and private placements, as opposed to the traditional mix of fixed income and public markets. So do you guys understand what that means? That means that one of the bigger issues that we have impacting almost every facet of life right now, which is private equity, that problem is gonna get worse, because that is where they're gonna park their money. They're going to want to make more money from the money that they've inherited, which I have no gripe with that. It is what it is. I think that's what smart people do. Smart people aren't like Donald Trump, where they inherit $400 million and then they squander it, okay? Most people want their money to make more money. However, the way in which they're likely to do it isn't actually going to benefit society. It's going to be parked in private equity firms, which have played a role in destroying our housing market and destroying our healthcare industry. I mean, I've done so many stories on these issues. So this isn't just about people inheriting money and not paying, their fair share of taxes on it. This is also about how this system continues to deteriorate our own country.
Yeah, so let me break this down for you guys, because look, I'm in the business community. I went to Wharton Business School. I know exactly what they're talking about here. So when they say, oh, well, they're gonna work hard investing their parents, the money that their parents left them, and that's another way of adding to the economy. So, guys, no. When you have money, you have to invest it. There's literally no one, I mean, maybe there's two randos, but overall, no one just lets the money sit there. I mean, at a bare minimum, you have to put it as something that it gets interest, right? So, and then you live off that interest, and if you're crazy, you'll spend the principal, et cetera. But the bottom line is, you have to invest it. And there's wealth managers, and they do the investing for you. They make it seem like it's like a tough job. It's not a job at all. You just hire someone to do it, and every once in a while, maybe you're active in it, and you make decisions like buy, sell. That's it. It's not. I know you have to, if you're really rolled up your sleeves and you're going company by company, maybe you got to do some research. I hope you're doing some research. But this is not, they're making it seem like this is a really hard job that they're doing. No, they're just parking their money somewhere, that's all. And hold on. And where do they mainly park it? These days it's in private equity. When we talk about private equity, venture capital, where do you think the money comes from? The money actually usually comes from very large families. And so they take those family funds and put it into private equity. What does private equity do with it? Well, one of the things that it does is it guts different American industries. So they'll buy Sears and other retail stores, Toys R Us, and they'll just gut it. And they'll take all the money out and then let it go bankrupt. That way they make more money. And then another thing that private equity does is now they're going around buying residential real estate, as Anna referred to. So now that makes all of our housing prices go up, then we can't afford housing. But this is all the heirs of the rich working really hard by putting their money into a private equity company. None of it helps the American people.
Look, the final thing that I'll mention is this survey also touched on something that should be a little surprising, which is to say that the parents who are passing this wealth over to their heirs were actually far more interested in some philanthropic work compared to the very individuals who are now inheriting their wealth. While more than 2/3, 68% of first-generation billionaires stated that following their philanthropic goals and making an impact on the world was a main objective of their legacy, less than a third, 32% of the inheriting generations did so. That's pretty depressing. It's really depressing.
Yeah.
So look, you have Bernie Sanders with a policy, or his policy advisor, his name is Warren Gunnels. He's very active on Twitter or X. He responded to a CNBC article about this survey by pointing out the trillions of dollars that heirs, the trillions of dollars that heirs receive from their billionaire parents, or they inherit over the next few decades, is well, let's take a look at his tweet. I think it's better to just read it than summarize it. So the GOP bill to repeal the estate tax would give, and that's what he's referring to. The GOP has proposed legislation that would repeal the estate tax. It would give $1.8 trillion to billionaires, $98 billion to Elon Musk's family, $66 billion to the Bezos family, $47 billion to the Zuckerberg family, and $0 to 99.9% of US families. So it's just, the system is already incredibly unfair for ordinary Americans, but what Republicans want to do is make it even less fair, if you can believe it. And good on Warren Gunnels for calling this out, and putting Republicans on blast for what they're proposing here, because this kind of stuff does not poll well, but this isn't the kind of stuff that you see a lot of coverage of either. So.
Yeah, let me clarify one quick thing that I said. I said, look, none of it helps, but that's what I want to be clear. So private equity or venture capital, et cetera, could make good investments that could help the economy and could help Americans. But that's not their job. Their job is to maximize profit. And so unfortunately, a lot of the things that they do, not all, but a lot, don't help any average American at all. It's just to make more money for the heirs. So what Warren Gunnels is pointing out is that the Republicans have proposed this bill. It's a real bill. And if, for example, if Donald Trump wins and they have majorities in the House and Senate, they will pass this bill to repeal the estate tax entirely. Do you know what the limit is right now for the estate tax? Right now, parents can leave up to $25 million untaxed. So what the Republicans are saying is these poor kids whose parents want to leave them more than $25 million, they shouldn't pay any taxes on the extra. It'll be double taxation. Wait a minute, when did they get taxed the first time? Never. Their parents were taxed, but they were never taxed. So the Republicans are saying we have to protect the ultra rich heirs who did not earn the money and who've never been taxed on the money. You have to work your ass off and we're gonna take the taxes. If you're middle class, we're gonna take taxes and more and more and more. But if you are a spectacularly wealthy heir, we're not gonna take any taxes from money you didn't earn and never paid a dime of taxes on.
Yeah, that's the thing that really gets to me, because when it comes to the working class, especially those in the middle, oh, they don't hesitate to tax the hell out of us. They'll double tax, okay? They'll tax you in the state of California, right? You do your federal taxes, can't escape that. But if you're living in a state like California, you got your state taxes. Then the money that's left behind from that, you have to pay sales taxes every time you buy something. It's infuriating, because keep in mind that the lack of revenue that the government makes as a result of the low taxes on the rich, they make that up by taxing the hell out of you.
Yes, there's fines, fees, sales tax, gas tax.
God.
Those are all regressive taxes on the middle class in America. But when it comes to the super rich, the populist party, the Republican Party, goes, no taxes on the richest people. For all those trillions of dollars, don't you dare touch our beloved rich donors.
Yep.
That's the sick Republicans. And what do the Democrats do? There was nothing we could do. There was nothing we can do.
Always.
You know that the estate taxes limit used to be 5 million. The Democrats helped the Republicans raise it all the way up to 25 million while singing, there was nothing we could do, there was nothing we could do. My ass, you all take money from these guys. They're all bribes, legalized bribes. Our system is sick, it's intensely corrupt. And the number one corrupt party is the Republican Party, serving the rich completely and utterly while pretending to be populist.
When we come back, Democratic Senator John Fetterman has some thoughts on corruption and how he feels about a Democratic colleague of his in the Senate engaged in corruption schemes. A little ironic when you consider what he's influenced by. We've got that and more coming up. Don't miss it.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
Today we're going to be speaking with Cenk Uygur, host of The Young Turks and also author of the new book, Justice is Coming.
Author of the brand new book that we have here, Justice is Coming.
How progressives are going to take over the country and America is going to love it.
His new book is out now, Justice is Coming.
Cenk Uygur,
he's got a book out.
I encourage every progressive and non-progressive to read it.
Very interesting, very thought-provoking.
2 main ideas. 1, that progressives are correct on these kind of policy issues. And 2, America is actually a very progressive country.
And it's a powerful read.
This will be banned in Florida. By the way, that would be kind of awesome. There's no question we're going to win in the long run. The country's that progressive?
You have given me hope, Cenk.
I do see you as a voice of reason on the left, and I hope people will check out your book.
It's for outsiders, and it's for progressives and populists that are looking to overthrow this system.
You need this book in your house.
They tell you that change is not possible, hope is not possible, justice is not possible. Do not believe their lies. Change always wins. And then we take off like a rocket. tyt.com/justice. Make a difference here at TYT. Together, we amplify the issues that matter. Medicare for all, criminal justice reform, ending imperialist wars, college for all, racial justice, climate change, and an end to money's corrupting influence on our politics. As a member, you help make the show happen, and your support makes an impact on our mission to drive positive change. Click the join button on YouTube to become a member, or go to tyt.com/join.
Do you guys have any idea how clownish you look?
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and random BPTN upgraded through the join button. We appreciate it and wrote this. Hey guys, I updated because even when I don't agree fully with you, I respect your honesty.
I love that.
Oh, you're the best. We appreciate that so much. Yes, that's exactly what we're going for here, guys. And you don't have to agree with us all the time, and we don't have to agree with you all the time, as long as we're all trying to honestly get to the right answer.
I love you, Donna. Don't be mad at me, Donna. All right.
Okay.
Let's get to the rest of the news. This story is fascinating because it has to do with corruption and an unwillingness to self-reflect. Let's do it.
We have a colleague in the Senate that actually did much more sinister and serious kinds of things. Senator Menendez, he needs to go. And if you are going to expel Santos, how can you allow to somebody like Menendez to remain in the Senate?
Freshman Democratic Senator John Fetterman has some pretty strong views on corruption in Congress, particularly when it comes to one of his Democratic colleagues in the United States Senate. He's specifically talking about Bob Menendez here, who is caught up in yet another corruption scandal, a separate corruption scandal from the one that he was dealing with years ago. And so let's hear Fetterman make his case against Menendez.
Santos's kind of lies were almost, funny, and like, he, landed on the moon and that kind of stuff. Whereas, I think, Menendez, I think, is really a senator for Egypt, not New Jersey. So I really think he needs to go, and especially it's kind of strange that if Santos is not allowed to remain in the House, someone like that. Yeah.
Are you though uncomfortable with the fact that there hasn't been an adjudication, that while he's been charged, there hasn't been a conviction? With Menendez.
I am, and it's like he has the right for his day in court and all that, but he doesn't have the right to have those kind of votes and things that that's not a right, and I think we need to make that kind of decision to send him out.
Fetterman calling out Bob Menendez as the senator from Egypt, which is rich, considering some of the reporting involving John Fetterman and why he's been an unwavering supporter of Israel. I will get to the details on that in a moment, and it's really important to know the behind the scenes details to really understand why John Fetterman has been such a committed supporter of Israel, especially during this ongoing war in Gaza. But a quick refresher on Bob Menendez, okay, because he is caught up in this corruption scandal. It has not been adjudicated yet, but he is facing charges as a result. Now, he took bribes from many people, illegal bribes that ended up like enriching himself. They weren't bribes that helped his campaign, so that's why it's considered illegal. He took illegal bribes from a New Jersey businessman named Fred Davies. Davies allegedly bribed him with gold bars to get Menendez to intervene and influence the New Jersey US Attorney's Office, which in 2018 was investigating Davies in relation to a separate crime of bank fraud. And by the way, it appears Menendez did get involved. So he took the bribe and tried to influence that investigation. And guess what? The latest update to that is that the gold bars have now been traced back to Davies, because he was actually a victim of a robbery back in 2013 in which the robbers stole his gold bars. As NBC News reports, it was November 2013 when Davies, a millionaire developer, told police that he had been the victim of a gunpoint robbery in his penthouse apartment in Edgewater. He said he was tied to a chair as the thieves made off with cash, gold, and jewelry. The 4 suspects were quickly caught and later pleaded guilty. Davies attended court proceedings as the victim. On December 13th, 2013, Davies signed documents to get his property, including the gold bars, back, okay? Now keep in mind that the gold bars have serial numbers on them. And those are the same gold bars that were found in Menendez's home when authorities raided it as a result of this ongoing investigation into illegal corruption. Now, Menendez had denied taking payoffs from Davies, even though prosecutors allege testing shows Davies's fingerprints and DNA are on some of the tens of thousands of dollars in cash found in Menendez's home. But in a statement about the ties of the gold bars found at his home to a decade-old robbery, counsel for Menendez said He, quote, will not be commenting on anonymous media leaks designed to prejudice his right to a fair trial. He looks forward to addressing the government's claims in court based on a complete record of the evidence. But we should also talk about how Menendez is tied up in an illegal corruption scandal involving Egypt. And that is what Fetterman was alluding to. So Jake, did you want to jump in or you want me to give those details?
Yeah, just real quick. Look, I appreciate Fetterman calling out Menendez. I appreciate any Democrat who's actually going against one of their beloved colleagues, which they don't often do, very, very rarely do. And so the fact that he's breaking that precedent is positive. And Chuck Schumer said we got Menendez to step down from the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee temporarily until he resolves this matter, right? Because he stepped down as chair before, stayed on the committee, even though he clearly seems to be taking bribes from Egypt. And then he resumed the chairmanship after he got past his last corruption charges. So this guy is deeply, deeply corrupt and has been for a long time. And even at this late date, most Democrats aren't calling him out. So I like that Fetterman's doing it. But boy, does he not have a leg to stand on when it comes to his relationship to Israel. But we'll get to that in a second as Anna.
Yeah, so the final thing I'll say about Menendez, and look, to be fair, Fetterman is right about Menendez. So one of the other illegal bribes that Menendez allegedly took was from a businessman in Egypt by the name of Wael Hanna. Now, Menendez used his position as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to help him win an executive halal meat inspection contract with the Egyptian government. And the FBI also said that in exchange for bribes, Menendez tried to assist the government of Egypt with arms sales. So that is what Fetterman was alluding to. He does have a leg to stand on in regard to these criticisms because it appears that these criticisms are based in reality. They're based in facts and they're based on evidence that has been coming out of this investigation. However, he is salty toward Menendez because he claims that Menendez is serving Egypt as opposed to the American people. Well, let's also consider the fact that Fetterman seems to have made a deal with a pro-Israel group here in the United States known as the Democratic Majority for Israel. And it was a deal to ensure that the pro-Israel lobby would stay out of his senatorial race. So let me give you the details on that. As reported by Ryan Grimm in The Intercept, John Fetterman was locked in what threatened to be a tight primary race with Representative Connor Lamb for a Senate nomination. And Lamb's campaign was openly pleading for super PAC support to put him over the top. Now, Democratic Majority for Israel's president, Mark Mellman, had reached out to Fetterman with questions about his position on Israel. He's never come out and said that he's not a supporter of Israel, but the perception is that he aligns with the squad more than anything else. Democratic activist Brett Goldman told the Jewish Chronicle. And by the way, you should read the entirety of the Jewish Chronicle's piece on this as well. Mellman said that Fetterman's campaign responded to his inquiry and came with an interest in learning about the issues. Following the meeting, the campaign reached out again. Then they sent us a position paper, which we thought was very strong, Mellman said, but it wasn't quite strong enough. Jewish Insider reported that DMFI emailed back some comments on the paper, which Fetterman was receptive to addressing in a second draft. So basically, he puts out his statement in support of Israel. He shows the Democratic Majority for Israel what that statement is. They're like, yeah, this is strong, this is good, let's make it stronger. So they basically edit it on his behalf. He accepts it. And so later Fetterman says, I want to go out of my way to make sure that it's absolutely clear that the views that I hold in no way go along with the lines of some of the more fringe or extreme wings of our party. I would also respectfully say that I am not really a progressive in that sense.
Wow, thanks for letting us know.
That is amazing. And then finally, Fetterman, unprompted, stressed that there should be zero conditions on military aid to Israel, that BDS was wrong, that's the boycott divestment movement to hold Israel accountable and so on. Quote, let me just say this, even if I'm asked or not, I was dismayed by the Iron Dome vote, he added. DMFI and AIPAC stayed out of his race. That was the deal.
Okay, guys, how is this not just open corruption? So they say, we're Democratic Majority for Israel. They're not unclear about it. We are hoping that an American government helps another country, a foreign country. By the way, the other countries are so dumb for not doing this. You could do Democratic majority for Turkey or Greece or Iran or wherever you like.
Well, talk to Henry Cuellar. A lot of foreign governments do this.
Yeah, Azerbaijan apparently did it with Cuellar.
Right.
So then you know what? But those knuckleheads did it illegally. Do Democratic majority for Azerbaijan, and then there's in every ethnic group there are plenty of super rich Americans, right? Turkish Americans, Azerbaijani Americans, Persian Americans, etc. And then you collect your money and you say, now, hey, you senator, I'm going to spend millions of dollars in making sure that you don't win, or you have to give me a loyalty pledge to another country. That's literally what they're doing. Literally what they're doing, right? So you can just buy any senator you like. You just go up to them and you do this thing. And if they don't listen to you, you say, that's it, Azerbaijan is now going to spend 4 million, 10 million, 20 million against you. Otherwise, and by the way, then that reverberates and affects all of the other politicians. Because remember, they didn't actually spend any money against Fetterman.
That's true.
They spent money against Nina Turner and Summer Lee and other progressives. That's what forced Fetterman to go, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll work for Israel. I'll do anything for Israel. Even if unprompted, if nobody asked me, I'll just go around and wave an Israeli flag, which he did, by the way, as they were murdering people in Gaza. And I'll do anything for Israel. I'm a populist progressive, I wear sweatshirts. Come on, man. Come on, the senator from Egypt over there. You're right about the senator from Egypt, but you're the senator from Israel, and you admitted it. You said, I'll do anything for you. I serve a foreign country and not America.
Just stay out of my race, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, so this is how they buy politicians. Now, they're hurting the cause of, look, I'm gonna say it, I don't care what anybody says. They're hurting the cause of Jewish Americans. Because then people go, oh, look at that. It's Israel that's controlling me. Any country can do this. It has nothing to do with being Jewish. But you think you're gonna stop people having anti-Semitic stereotypes while you openly, brazenly buy United States politicians? The reality is the Saudis do it, Qatar does it, they do it through think tanks, they do it through super PACs. So Muslims do it, Jews do it, Christians do it, etc. But they do it so flagrantly that it invites these stereotypes, which is so damaging for Jewish Americans.
Which is why the whole system needs to be reformed so no foreign country can do it.
Obviously, this isn't about Israel at all. This is about what's wrong with the American system, where we allow open bribery. And then now countries are holding auctions for our different politicians. Oh, that's the senator from Egypt. Oh, that's the senator from Israel. Can I hear somebody from the senator from Qatar? Senator from Botswana, going once, going twice. Who would like to buy this senator? And that's the current American system now. It's disgusting, and it has turned America, unfortunately, into the most corrupt country on earth because we legalized bribery.
100%. All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, we're gonna tell you about a shocking poll result having to do with an independent candidate in one of the reddest states in the country. And there's a pro-labor message here that is really resonating with the GOP voters. So we've got that and more coming up. Don't miss it.
All right, guys, so first off, don't forget, tomorrow, Republican debate, you know we always do analysis right afterwards, so whenever there's a Republican debate, you tune into TYT right after for analysis. But in this cise, twist, John Idaho is gonna host, and it's gonna be the 3 non-Biden Democratic presidential candidates. And not only will it be the first time that the 3 of us are together in any format, any platform, also the first time Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips are together on any platform or format. And then we're all gonna react to the Republican debates, so make sure you're checking that out. That ought to be very, very interesting. It's tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern, right after the Republican debate. All right, let me go to YouTube super chats. Rosman writes, and Cenk, to be fair, I know plenty of Christians against the killing of babies. I also know plenty of Democrats against ceasefire, so don't generalize. Rosman, I appreciate that you're saying that, and it's good that you're sticking up for people, and you are right. Now, but why do I say it the way that I did in the earlier segment? Because there are no prominent evangelical Christians going out, no, don't kill the babies in Gaza. There are no politicians that are in that community, and there's no media in that community, and there are no pastors in that community that are saying it publicly and that are leading a movement or that are participating in any movement. I haven't seen one public denunciation from anyone in that community at all. That doesn't mean that good Christians in the world aren't racked with grief over what's happening in Gaza. Obviously, a lot of them are, tons of them are, right? But you got to stand up and take over your community. Only the monsters are representing you when it comes to the evangelical Christians. But I appreciate that you put that out there. Anthony McClendon wrote in, I'm not a fan of Anna's Salt Queen nickname. She's more than that. She works hard to provide honest reporting, shows empathy for the oppressed, speaks her truth, even when she knows she'll be attacked. And as Wozni says, she's unapologetically herself. Here. Look, I want all of our hosts to be that way, and Anna's an excellent role model in that case, and I'm super proud of her for being that way. And thank you for noticing, all of you guys.
Thank you, Anthony. That was super sweet, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. R. Stone writes in, I know there's a small point, but how can any nation align with a military force with an under 15% combatant kill rate with as much available to them as the Israeli government does? This has to change.
True.
Yes, remember they're killing those women and children with our American tax dollars. Michael Cotovelli wrote in, more than half the states have laws against BDS, which violates our First Amendment rights. We don't have laws banning boycotts of the US. Isn't that amazing?
It is, yes, I agree.
And it's for the exact reason that we talked about with AIPAC and Democratic Majority for Israel. So you can boycott America all you like, you're not gonna get put in prison over that, but half the states, you will if you boycott Israel. There's no justification for that. It's absolutely mental.
And by the way, there have already been victims of those kinds of laws. There was a Texas public school teacher who ended up losing her job as a result of being part of the BDS movement. It's wrong, and it goes against our free speech rights.
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. And remember today, free 10-minute bonus episode, and then the bonus episode continues for members. But at least you can check it out if you're not a member to see what you're missing. And obviously tyt.com/join to become one. All right, Anna.
Well, let's talk a little bit about a race that's really standing out in the state of Nebraska. Nebraska is not a blue state. It's not even a purple state. It is solidly a red state. And an independent candidate, the gentleman you see right next to me, is running as an independent, and polling indicates that he's doing real well. So his name is Dan Osborne. He's running as an independent for a Senate seat in the red state of Nebraska. And it might be hard to believe because, again, Nebraska is super Republican. They have, let's tell you how Republican they are. Nebraska has voted for a Republican president every year since 1964. And a survey conducted in November shows that respondents favor former President Donald Trump over Joe Biden by a margin of 16 points. So it gives you a sense of where the political loyalties lie here. But according to the poll, which was conducted by Change Research, Nebraskan voters actually prefer Osborne to the current Republican Senator, Deb Fischer, who's actually held that seat for 10 years now. The poll shows Osborne leading Fischer by a margin of 2 points, despite 59% of respondents saying they had never heard of him before, which is insane. Now, we're gonna get to his platform, and I think that has something to do with this. But pollsters asked a series of questions regarding Osborne's policy platform, after which 53% of respondents said they'd vote for him, compared to 30% for Fischer. So in other words, they were told what his policy positions were, and the poll results changed to overwhelmingly supporting Osborne over Fisher.
Yeah, guys, this is an amazing story and potentially very, very impactful for American politics in the future. So there's a number of factors here. Number one, when I first saw the story, I thought, oh, they're just getting the Osbornes confused, because Tom Osborne was the legendary football coach of the University of Nebraska. And he was actually a Republican congressman for a little while. And I'm like, oh, they think they're voting for another Republican, and one that's super popular in Nebraska. And it turns out, no. 59% of the people who said they never even heard of him, as Anna just told you, because, well, so what does that indicate? That indicates they're saying, no, I don't think he's Tom Osborne. I have no idea who he is, but I'll take him over the Republican Senate.
Yeah, it's amazing. And his support grew once the respondents understood what he wants to champion as a United States Senator. Okay, so by the way, let's talk about the breakdown, the political breakdown of the respondents to this survey. 33% of poll respondents were Democrats, 14% independent, and 53% Republican. 53% said they voted for Trump in 2020, while 35% said that they voted for Biden.
But they still are voting against the Republican in Nebraska's Senate race and in favor of the independent, even though they voted in such giant margins for Trump. And it's not theoretical. Those are the same people answering the same question. So that means, yes, it's real. It's real. So I'm going to tell you why in a second, but Anna's got more.
So number one, it should be noted that he refuses to take donations from corporate PACs. So he is obviously strong in being against corruption, which has become a virus in our political system. And his policy platform looks pretty good. Now remember, he's running as an independent in a red state, but there are some really strong progressive stances here. First of all, he wants to cut taxes for the middle class and small businesses by cutting wasteful spending and closing loopholes used by multinationals to avoid paying taxes.
That's very popular and not at all the Republican plan. The Republican plan is open up bigger loopholes for multinational corporations.
He wants to legalize and tax medicinal cannabis. Honestly, at this point, that's such a no-brainer that I don't even want to give anyone credit for that. I just think it should be a given, but good, he's right on that issue. And wasteful government handouts to the pharmaceutical industry, which is super yummy in my tummy. I love that.
Over 90% of Americans agree with that, and over 90% of politicians don't.
But get a load of this. He wants to pass the PRO Act, which is a pro-labor bill that would make it far easier for people to organize their workplace and join a union. So he's clear on being in favor of the PRO Act, and he also wants to pass congressional term limits. So Osborne does support an increase to the federal minimum wage, but it is unclear in regard to how much he would want to increase it. The only thing he has stated on that issue is that he wants to raise the federal minimum wage to match that of Nebraska's. And if you're wondering what that is, the current minimum wage in the state of Nebraska is $10.50, but that will increase to $15 an hour by January 15th of 2026. And Osborne also supports right to repair laws, a competitive wage for servicemen and women, better protections for family farms, and lower taxes on overtime wages. And the Post actually sums up his policy platform pretty well. Let's take a look at this. So his post on X, he says, we had main streets crowded with small businesses, an AG sector full of family farms, a heavily unionized workforce. We had the greatest economy in the world. We can't forget that. So yeah, I mean, I really do think, look, this is a case study for what I think we've been arguing on the show for many, many years now.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for Democrats to run as Republican light in even Republican districts or Republican states. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, your economic situation matters, and that is what most voters prioritize. It's the economy, stupid. So what can you do to materially improve the lives of voters? If you can show how you want to do that, if you can show that you're actually sincere in wanting to do that, I think you're more likely to win, even in a deeply red state like Nebraska.
Okay, so super important lessons for American politics out of this. Number one, independents are now much stronger than they used to be, and a lot of the media has not caught, and a lot of the politicians have not caught up to that fact. When I was growing up, independents were a small group, Republicans and Democrats were very large. Now there are more independents than there are Republicans or Democrats. But no one talks like that. Like when you go watch cable news, are they talking about, well, the biggest political factor in the country is independents? No, they only talk about Republicans and Democrats when the country is vomiting Republicans and Democrats. So here comes an independent in Nebraska, and he's kicking the Republicans' asses, right? Obviously, let alone the Democrats. So that's point number one. Point number two is now there is a significant anti-incumbent fervor. It has begun. It has taken forever. So no matter how much people hated Washington my whole life, you would ask them in polls, do you hate Washington? Yes. Do you hate your own senator? They'd be like, no, my senator's the only good one. Why? Because they got propaganda from local news and their local area saying, oh, Senator Fisher is so great. Oh, Senator Fisher, oh, yeah, right? Now they're not listening to that crap anymore. And here, I'll give Republican voters credit, as I do often in situations like this, where they're more anti-incumbent than Democrats are. Democrats should be furious at their corrupt incumbents, but they have been brainwashed by MSNBC and mainstream media. No, we must always support the powerful and authority figures and incumbents. They are only help against Republicans, right? They never win, right, on policy issues, but that's what people have been trained to. But Republicans, you can't like the upside of them going rogue is they don't want to hear any crap about how great politicians are. So this Fisher lady's coming in Nebraska, like, oh, I am a beloved Republican. They're like, get. Yeah. The other guy's in favor of family farms and family businesses and unions and labor. Yeah, that guy.
Improving people's lives. By the way, let me just also note, no Democrat is running in this race because it's Nebraska. So a Democrat thinks like there's no chance I can win. And quite honestly, I think Dan Osborne is running as an independent because branding himself as a Democrat would probably be a liability in this race. But it doesn't matter. What the voters are receptive to are his policy proposals here, which is good news. By the way, Cenk, you might be right about one thing. The voters might actually be familiar with him because he led a labor action in the state of Nebraska that got a lot of positive attention. So what am I referring to? Well, he has, of course, been supportive of unions, and he actually served as the president of the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union Local 50G. Lengthy name, but you guys get the picture. So in 2021, he actually led his local union strike against Kellogg's, where he works. So the strike lasted a whopping 77 days, during which Kellogg's threatened to replace every single one of those striking workers. But the company eventually came to the table, and according to the Intercept, the workers won a pay raise of $1.10 per hour, a new cost of living pay increase, and also a pathway for lower tier workers to graduate into a higher tier of pay. So he's actually been like walking the walk. He doesn't just talk the talk through his policy proposals. He's actually been on the front lines with labor. He's part of labor, and he has fought for better pay and better working conditions for workers in Nebraska. He's also pointed to that very experience as proof that Americans have much more in common than we realize. So let's go to the last graphic here. He says, when our strike preserved 500 middle-class jobs at Kellogg's, we received support from Republicans, Democrats, independents, small businesses, non-union workers. Maybe America isn't as divided as they say. And I love that message because, again, I really do believe, I've been saying this for a long time, when it comes to a lot of the bread and butter issues, there's a lot more commonality, a lot more agreement among Americans than the media would have you believe. Where you see the divisions is usually in culture war issues that are further turned into wedge issues by the very politicians who do not want you to focus on how they should be improving your financial stability. Let's keep it real.
Yeah, two more amazing trends out of this that are important. One is, he's only raised $100,000.
Amazing.
So the Fisher, of course, has millions upon millions of dollars, and in the old days, you just buy the election. But these days, it's harder to control people through political ads. One, they think the political ads are horse crap, and they're right. And number two, the message is getting out because he's doing it on Twitter, he's doing it on social media, and he doesn't need as much money. Oh, I love this. And then finally, what Anna started with. look at the policy. We told you guys, the policies are incredibly popular. He's beating a Republican in Nebraska. Why? Because he's going with economic populism. He's going with serve the average American, serve the middle class, serve small businesses, not large businesses. Stop being corrupt, and it's working. But let's be honest, there's one important factor there. Economic populism, but no culture war stuff. So if you go towards culture wars, then you start losing the independent voters and the Republican voters, etc. You might hate that, and you say, oh no, I want him to be a culture warrior for our side. Well, sorry, he's not gonna win if he does that. So
he's not gonna win if he runs on that in Nebraska, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's doing the smart and right thing, which is he's not talking about those issues at all. I don't even know his opinions on those issues, right? But he's saying, no, we're gonna deliver economic populism, and it is working better than anyone expected. This is what we've been saying for so long on TYT. And you see it now working on almost no money at all.
Yep. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, a 9-year-old fan of the Chiefs, an NFL team, has been labeled a racist by a writer for Deadspin. He might be facing a lawsuit, and I think he should. So that and more coming up. Don't miss it.
Back on TYT. So first, let's go to Super Chat again. Ryan L. wrote in earlier, just curious how you gather/use polling info. I've never been polled, so is it accurate to say, for example, 70% of Americans believe X? Yes, so in my experience, the polling is really good. And I know nobody says that. They always want to use an excuse, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, depending on which side they fall on. If the poll doesn't agree with what they want, they pretend that polling doesn't work. Okay, so has polling been off a little bit here and there? Yes, of course, and they tell you there's a margin of error, right? Has there been a couple of cases where they were way off? An individual poll or two? Yes, but overall, I know through a lot of political experience behind the scenes, the polling is pretty accurate. So they have a scientific way of sampling so that it is an accurate representation of Americans. The size of the sample definitely matters, and that's why some polls are more reliable than others. Okay, Dragon Lord writes in, watching from Australia, Anna looks gorgeous as always. Love hearing real news, wish we had a show like yours over here.
Thank you, that's super sweet, and I would love to visit Australia one day. So
oh yeah, me too.
Send your recommendations.
Yes, look, I wish we had a show in all of these countries, and we've thought about it 100 times. We've been thinking about it for 15 years, but we just don't have enough cash to do shows in all the places we'd love to do them.
I mean, we should visit though. We should visit those places.
Just in case.
I mean,
get ready.
And the company should pay for it because it's research for the show.
Research, that's right. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Not gonna happen. All right, Perry Anderson is a YouTube member and writes in, yay, more billionaires has to be good news for the rest of us. Okay, obviously sarcastic, and that's really funny, referring to our billionaire story earlier. Song of Sparrow writes in, here I thought I was having a bad day. This is about Gaza. Here I thought I was having a bad day. These poor folks lost 9 of their family members and had to dig through the rubble with their bare hands. Lord, forgive us for our sins. And that's a real, I don't know if they're Christian, but that's what a real Christian would say. Yes, forgive us for our sins. We paid for that death and destruction. Norm Wilson says, as a Canadian that closely follows US politics, I'm always shocked by the corruption that happens right out in the open. Yeah, whenever I do interviews in different countries, it happens, UK, Turkey, other places, right? They're always like bewildered. They're like, really? You guys don't have any paid family leave? Like the mom has to go to work the next day or take money out of her own, and you guys don't have any universal health care. So if you are middle class, you just die. And you guys, they just allow people to give the politicians money for their campaigns? Well, then of course they'd work for, yes. It's incredible how corrupt and ridiculous this system is. Yeah, Stephen Bowen writes in, is calling a Christian Zionist also classified as anti-Semitic?
According to the House, it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great point. That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, 4-Ton Dragon says, wouldn't a lot of Trumpers vote for Bernie if he ran? Oh yeah, you know why? Because Bernie does economic populism like that guy in Nebraska. And that's why a huge percentage would have voted for him instead of Trump. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and AK just joined. I thought you were AK, but all right. We got 2 now. Hit the join button, guys. We need you and we appreciate you.
I didn't even have to use my AK. Today was a good day.
Apparently. Okay,
all right.
What's next?
Let's do it.
Seeing the videos and everything posted, he's excited. He's all over. It was his dream to get on the Jumbotron. And I've had family and friends call and, oh, we saw you on Sunday Night Football, so he's excited. But then everything else came up, and it's been a little bit of a spiral.
The parents of a 9-year-old Chiefs fan are now threatening legal action against one of the writers for the sports publication Deadspin after that writer accused their 9-year-old son of racial insensitivity by wearing blackface. Now, we just saw what the 9-year-old boy looked like. He had half his face painted black, half his face painted red. Those are the colors of the team. I would also just like to note that we're literally talking about a 9-year-old right now. So the notion that any journalist should focus on something that a 9-year-old did just kind of blows my mind. I feel like we have like no decency left at this point. But nonetheless, during the November 26th Chiefs game against the Las Vegas Raiders, 9-year-old Holden Armenta, that's the little boy that you saw in the video, was seen in the crowd with that red and black face paint while also sporting a Native American headdress. Now, after the little boy was shown on national TV in this garb, I guess, doing the tomahawk chop, which apparently Chiefs fans are known to do. With tens of thousands of other fans in attendance, Deadspin writer Karen J. Phillips decided to release this article. So here's the piece in question. The NFL needs to speak out against the Kansas City Chiefs fan in blackface native headdress. Okay, the Chiefs fan again is that 9-year-old boy. So he also wrote in the article, it takes a lot to disrespect 2 groups of people at once, but on Sunday afternoon in Las Vegas, a Kansas City Chiefs fan found a way to hate black people and the Native Americans at the same time. Jake, am I a bad person for thinking that was an insane allegation against a 9-year-old boy?
Yeah.
A 9-year-old boy.
So, no, you're not insane, they're insane. And so, but I want to break it down a little bit more. In the article, they talk about how, it looks to be a child, but it could be a teenager or a young adult. No, he cannot be a young adult. He's 9, and we could all see that he's 9. Don't be ridiculous. And he managed to spread hate against black people and Native Americans. Dude, he's not trying to spread hate. He's a 9-year-old that wanted to root for the Chiefs. Don't be a lunatic. Okay, come on, please, I'm begging you.
Yeah, the 9-year-old, by the way, is also part Native American.
So we're gonna get to that too.
Yeah.
So, and there, you saw the headline. Their whole point was the NFL needs to speak out against this 9-year-old. Do they? Do they? Look, the NFL's got 1,000 problems on race. What they did to Colin Kaepernick is unconscionable. As I see like the 8th Jets quarterback throw passes into the stands, I'm like, how did Colin Kaepernick not get back in the league? And it was overwhelming racism. But that's not this. That's not this.
Okay, so fill me in real quick. Fill me in on this whole, I know that the Kansas City Chiefs, like the name of the team is considered controversial. I get the whole argument behind that. But the whole tomahawk chop thing, so that's been going on. Has that been considered controversial?
Yeah, it has. So they went through that. And so there's a couple of teams like the Florida State Seminoles that actually went and talked to, that's a college team, went and talked to the local Seminole tribes and got permission to do it, right?
Okay.
And so the Chiefs are kind of in a gray zone, if you will, on that. But generally speaking, they're considered to be okay in doing it. But a lot of people don't think it's okay. So that's why I say it's a gray zone. So to me, I don't, look, I'm not a Native American, so I don't know if I'm allowed to say what I think about it, but I think that if context matters a ton. Washington had a name for their football team that I'm loath to even say out loud these days. Because that was over the top racist, okay? And the fact that we all just accepted it for all these years, I would say all the time, like, what are we doing? This is crazy.
Yeah, that was a crazy
right? But Cleveland Indians changed their name to the Guardians in baseball. I'm not sure that I agree with that, okay? But the Chiefs are perfectly okay. A chief is respectful, the chief of the tribe. So are we never allowed to say anything that's Native American at all? Like, doesn't it matter if you say it in a disrespectful way or a respectful way? In a way that's meant to be racist and attacking them, or in a way that reveres them? It's gotta matter, doesn't it? Aren't we supposed to use our brains and human judgment instead of attacking a 9-year-old and pretending he's spreading hate against Native Americans? And you didn't even bother checking that he is a Native American.
Well,
partly. But then everybody's partly Native American. Not everybody's partly Native American.
No, that's not true. Okay.
No.
This isn't like an Elizabeth Warren situation. Like, this kid is genuinely part Native American.
Yeah, let me clarify what I mean by that. I don't mean that everybody's partly Native American. What I mean is, people who are Native American, it is very rare for them to be 100% Native American. So there are tons of people who are Native American who are partially Native American,
right?
As this family is,
right? So his family comes from the Chumash tribe in the, I believe, Santa Ynez area of California. That's like the Santa Barbara area, more or less. But with that said, Shannon Armenta, who is Holden's mother, took to Facebook to accuse Phillips of trying to create division through his article. She also clarified that her son is Native American. And during an appearance on Jesse Waters' show, Holden's dad, his name's Bubba, also explained that there was absolutely no ill intent when his son wore the Native American headdress. So let's take a look at that.
We never in any way, shape, or form meant to disrespect any Native Americans or any tribes. The tribe we're from doesn't even wear that type of headdress. This specific headdress is a novelty piece. It's a costume piece. That's exactly what we had purchased it for and wore it for. Not in any disrespect towards any Native Americans at all. And it's been a whirlwind of comments coming even from other tribes, from tribal members. Some think it's okay, some think it's not okay. It's a 9-year-old boy supporting his team.
So the writer from Deadspin took a look at that, got all this new information about the reality of the situation, and decided to double down. And so on social media, he posted this. This is on X. For the idiots in my mentions who are treating this as some harmless act because the other side of his face was painted red, I could make the argument that it makes it even worse. Y'all are the ones who hate Mexicans but wear sombreros on Cinco. This type of journalism needs to die. It just does. Like, we've gone way too far, okay? Again, it's a 9-year-old boy. He's part Native American. He's not wearing blackface. He's wearing the colors of the team that he is a big fan of. What are we doing here? And how does this serve to improve society in any way?
Yeah, so now you could say, hey, to be fair to the reporter, he didn't know that the kid was part Native American. But that's our point exactly. You didn't know, but you said he was spreading hate.
Exactly, yep.
That's not journalism. And that's assumption on top of assumption based on nothing. And now to me, another giant part of this is they just invented a new thing, partial blackface. But that's not a thing. Like, blackface is a thing because white people would do blackface and then like
they would mock black people.
It was to mock people, but they would also lead to lynchings.
Yes.
And Birth of a Nation had blackface, and then it encouraged people to lynch black people. But no one did partial blackface. That's not a thing. You just invented that. Okay, so let me show you other examples of partial blackface. And these people, of course, should all be canceled and sent to prison or something. Let's take a look at another football picture here to show you the guilty parties involved. Ooh, a lot of partial blackface there. Part gray, part black, Raider Nation. You're now all on notice. Oh no, not Steelers. Steeler Nation, you're also put on notice. That is partial blackface there because their uniform is black and gold.
Oh
no. Kiss, what have you done? Partial blackface. You know, when people dressed up as Kiss, the terrible things that they would do, like collecting candy at Halloween. Guys, there are real serious things that happened during blackface. You're minimizing it by trying to attack a poor 9-year-old kid who didn't do blackface at all. You're making a mockery of an actual real problem that existed in this country.
Yep. Totally.
You're not helping our cause, the cause you think you're helping, and it's not helping to divide the country by constantly attacking one another on absurd things that make no sense at all. We got to bring people back together instead of constantly dividing them. That was the problem in the first place.
In our members only bonus episode, we are gonna talk about Donald Trump dropping his latest merch, and it is a doozy. Don't miss that and plenty more. First 10 minutes will be free for all. We'll see you there, tyt.com/join.
Hot dog is my favorite meat. It's up!
The only reason I'm here is because you are a friend.
All right, welcome back to the bonus episode. Cenk Uygur Experiment with you guys. Obviously, the first 10 minutes is free, as we told you guys. And
we're giving you guys a little sneak peek, a little tasty taste, okay? A little preview.
Yeah. So tomorrow, by the way, 2 guests Anna can tell you about.
Yes, I will be having Ryan Grimm on the show tomorrow to talk about his book. He's out with a new book, and there's a lot I want to talk to him about what's currently going on in government. We're also going to have a Democratic presidential candidate on the show in the first hour. You might be familiar with him. His name is Cenk Uygur. So he's gonna talk a little bit about what's currently transpiring with various states keeping the Democratic candidates off the ballots. It is an incredibly gross story, and I think it's important to understand the details of what's actually happening here. So.
Okay, and then obviously we're covering the Republican presidential debate, and then it'll be the 3 non-Biden Democratic candidates that'll react to the Republican debate. So 10 o'clock Eastern here tomorrow. And I want to thank our new members, Sarah CR1, botched job, privacy violated, and Joseph Costa. And when the 10 minutes is up here, you guys can all watch on the member stream, of course. Okay, tyt.com/join if you're not a member, or hit the join button. Anna's got the first story.
So let's talk about what Trump does, what the Trump camp does to make some money for this campaign, because they're creative. I'll give them some credit for that. So it's the holiday season, which means it's time for eggnog, overplayed Christmas music, and lots of gift wrap. Luckily, wrapping paper is pretty easy to come by, but Donald Trump is about to make it a lot easier for you, okay? Because he's just dropped some new merch in the form of wrapping paper. So without further ado, here it is, the official Trump 2024 campaign wrapping paper, which features his mugshot with a festive Santa hat to boot. So
you gotta give it to him, man. The guy's
shameless.
Shameless, constantly selling, and obviously a billionaire, because this is what a billionaire would do. Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, right before he passed away, was doing Charlie Munger Christmas wrapping. No billionaire does this.
Oh, I was gonna say, do they? Do they do this?
No, you do this when you need money.
So that ain't it, okay? So wait until you see just how much paper you're getting if you decide, how much you're paying for this if you decide to buy this merchandise. So it's $35 for the Trump wrapping paper. It's made in the USA, allegedly. I'm gonna go ahead and take their word for it.
Don't. Almost every Trump product was later exposed to be made in China, including the MAGA hats that they wear.
Okay, but let's go back to that graphic, everybody. Let's go back to that graphic. One set of 3 sheets for $35. And the sheet size is 21 by 39 inches. Guys, it's highway robbery. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's more expensive than the gifts I buy.
That's crazy.
Am I that cheap? Yes. Hey.
No, it's amazing. No, but like this is the thing about Trump, right? He'll take what should be a political liability. In his case, the fact that he has been indicted in so many different cases, at least 4 separate cases, and there's more legal troubles to come. But he looks at that and says, how can I turn this into an opportunity to make money? And so he takes his mugshot and he slaps it on a bunch of his merchandise, and it sells out. His fans love it. And if you want to burn more of your money, you can buy the Trump mugshot stocking for Christmas, because who doesn't want to hang that on their fireplace?
It looks like Trump scowling at you the whole time. The wrapping paper is hilarious. That stocking is creepy. So, and of course, let's always mention the same thing, which is his slogan, and that he sold on the t-shirts in the first place, then that's on that stocking, is never surrender. That's a photo of him surrendering to authorities. Okay, it's funny every time. Okay, so it's like you might as well write never take a mugshot. But that's exactly what, okay, all right.
So that stocking will only cost you $25, which is a steal when you consider that 3 sheets of paper would cost you $35. So I don't know who's deciding on the pricing here, but great job. Now the mugshot design might be ugly, but for whatever reason, it is insanely popular. So the Trump campaign told Politico that they actually managed to raise $4.18 million the day after he took his mugshot.
Yeah, I'm not at all surprised by that.
It's amazing.
Because at that point, it was all over the news. And so once it's all over the news, it's much easier to move product. And a lot of his fans were super proud. They thought it's gangster.
Jake, I gotta make a product to move.
Yeah, you
What product should I make? Eyeliner?
Sure, I mean.
Ladies like eyeliner, and they like the way I do my eyeliner. Should I do that?
But you kind of should, actually. You totally should.
All right, let's make that
and
happen.
then get arrested for political crime, and then go do the eyeliner in your mugshot and have the logo be "Never Surrender," Anna Kasparian eyeliner. Okay. So guys, but it does go to the point that Anna's making, which is that, look, his fans are having fun and they love him, and so he's an entertainer more than he is a politician. And so that's why they go vote for him, because it's like going to a concert and they all show up. Whereas nobody's buying Joe Biden Christmas gift wrapping paper. It's just not going to happen.
So I should note, not every Trump fan who's into this merch really understands what the merch is implying. So I haven't seen this video yet. Let's take a look and then we'll dissect.
What does never surrender mean?
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear what the deep state's trying to do, you know? They're trying to throw him in jail for something he basically never did, so.
The never surrender is a little bit confusing because this is his mugshot, right?
This is his mugshot, yeah.
And he was literally surrendering when he was doing this.
Yeah. See, now you're trying to spin it, but.
I'm just trying to state the obvious. I mean, I'm trying to understand, explain to me, because some people look at this and they say, yeah, Donald Trump never surrendered, go after the deep state. And then other people say, well, why use a picture of him surrendering and have the line that says never surrender?
Can you repeat the question?
Why have a t-shirt that has a picture of his mugshot of him surrendering and then have it say never surrender?
Well, because you can't surrender to these people. I mean, it's like, I don't really know how to explain it too well, but.
Well, maybe you surrender if you're criminally charged and you have to show up in court. Is that a time to surrender?
How do I put this? I don't really know.
Oh God, that was so painful.
Yeah.
That was a painful exchange.
Yeah.
I really wish I hadn't seen that.
Yeah. Now, to be fair to the guy, he's just a rando, right? And so they don't get the irony of it. They just don't get it, right? But they are enthusiastic about Trump, and that does make a difference. It's easy for us to laugh, right? But who's going to laugh last after the election's over? Because, like I said, nobody's buying Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden wrapping paper. Everybody knows that, and then our guys don't show up to vote because we're not excited about our candidates. And so, but look, I'll tell you one last thing here. Democrats are thinking, oh, it's okay, 91 indictments. I've heard that so many times.
Yep.
And they think, well, at the end, they're not going to vote for him because of the 91 indictments. Does it look like they give a damn? Like really, how could you possibly think that? It's not like they don't know. They have the mugshot on the shirt. They know that he's been charged. They think it's deep state. They think that it only adds to his credibility. Look, you can get frustrated by that, and I'm frustrated by it, and you could point out that he actually did break those laws, and you should. But if you think it's going to affect the election, the polling does not indicate that at all. So you're wishing upon a weirdo dream that doesn't exist. Oh, I hope Santa brings me independents who realize that 91 indictments is bad. Well, Santa ain't bringing that. It's not a thing that exists. The polling indicates they don't give a damn. And it's not just MAGA guys. The independents don't care either. And you wishing that they do isn't going to make any difference.
You know, Vanessa Friedman, who wrote a piece in the New York Times about this whole merchandising situation in political campaigns, like she makes a devastating point that I want to share with you all and then get your thoughts, Cenk, because she says, increasingly our politics aren't real unless they are advertised, or maybe they are too real until they are reduced to the digestible levels of advertising. The problem is in reducing big issues to the level of cheapish everyday stuff, both sides are also normalizing them. They are creating a situation in which we all get suckered into the idea that the current turmoil is a souvenir to be acquired and then stuck in a drawer rather than confronted. That is, I think that's a devastating and accurate point. It's dark, it is dark, and I don't really know what to say in response to it. I don't know how to stop it, but it's true, you see that.
Yeah, there's two components to that. Number one, she's of course right, but this everybody's so late to recognize this. Politics is now